A person who is at least a soul master apologized to himself, and old Jack's vanity was greatly satisfied. He quickly waved his hands and said, No need to apologize, no need to apologize. We were also at fault. Master, then I'll trouble you with this child. Xiao San, you follow Master inside, but you must listen. Tang San nodded but didn't speak. Before, when the Master stopped the gatekeeper from rushing towards him, his left hand had already lifted, and the safety of the sleeve arrow had been opened. If the Master's words had been a step later, perhaps there would have been an extra short arrow in the gatekeeper's throat. Tang Sect's Xian Tian record, Section 3, confirming the opponent is an enemy, as long as they pose a mortal threat, do not show mercy, otherwise it will only bring trouble to oneself. In Tang San's view, the gatekeeper attacking an old man like old Jack, coupled with his viciousness, already constituted a mortal threat. At the same time, he was absolutely confident that no one, including old Jack, would find out that the sleeve arrow came from him. Tang Sec's silent sleeve dart was extremely fast and would only leave a shadow, which was something that the gatekeeper couldn't dodge. After old Jack admonished Tang San a few more words, he left. The Master glanced faintly at the gatekeeper. This is the first time, and also the last time. If there's a next time, you won't need to stay here. His voice was hoarse but calm, carrying a feeling that couldn't be refuted. The gatekeeper's back was covered in cold sweat, quickly nodding repeatedly and stepping aside. The Master lowered his head to look at Tang San, a faint smile appearing on his face. His facial muscles seemed a bit stiff, making his smile somewhat unattractive. He took Tang San's hand and said, Let's go inside. The Master's hand was soft and dry, holding it was quite comfortable, giving Tang San a sense of trust. Under his guidance, Tang San finally entered the academy. Teacher, thank you, Tang San said to the Master. Teacher? I'm not a teacher at the academy. The Master looked down at Tang San and said lightly. Not a teacher? Didn't you just say you're representing the academy? The Master shook his head, unusually patient today. He squeezed out another one of those unpleasant smiles. Who said only teachers from the academy can represent the academy? I understand now. Then you must be the principal or the leader of the academy, right? The Master chuckled. You're quite clever for a 6-year-old. But you're still wrong. Then who are you? I'm just a freeloader here. Like everyone else, call me Master. Everyone calls me that. I've even forgotten my own name. The proof from the Martial Soul Hall says your name is Tang San, right? Tang San, you should understand, there's a world of difference between master and teacher. Don't call me the wrong thing in the future. Unless... Here, his words sounded enticing, but his eyes shimmered with a fiery light. Unless you really want me to be your teacher. Are you going to teach me martial soul cultivation? Tang San asked. The Master stopped, facing Tang San squarely. Are you willing? Tang San also naturally stopped, looking up at the Master in front of him. At this moment, observing him up close from bottom to top, he noticed the Master's mouth was quite large, and his lips were thick. He didn't speak, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. The Master looked at Tang San's gaze, which was staring blankly at him. His stiff smile appeared again. All right, you're indeed a clever child. Not speaking had two meanings. One was not rushing to refuse to avoid offending the Master, and the other was to ask the Master through actions, why should I accept you as my teacher? The Master, like old Jack, raised his hand and rubbed Tang San's head. Your innate talent, so clever, it seems I have to persist a bit. Well, you're the third one with a twin martial soul in 100 years. Hearing the Master's words, Tang San was greatly surprised. He looked at the Master's eyes and his left wrist quietly raised. His eyes showed a suspicious look. The Master looked at him seriously and nodded. You're wondering how I knew you have a twin martial soul? It's because of this proof. Perhaps others can't see the flaws in it, but if I can't, then I'm not worthy of the title of master. I once investigated 647 people with blue silvergrass as their martial soul. Among them, 16 had soul power, less than 3%. And even among these 16, none had a soul power exceeding level 1, but you have innate full level 10 soul power. According to one of the 10 core competencies of martial souls that I've researched, the size of innate soul power is directly proportional to the quality of the martial soul. Obviously, blue silvergrass is not enough. So, I can be sure that you should have another powerful martial soul. Tang San's gaze gradually calmed down, refuting, there are exceptions to everything. Why can't I be an exception? The master nodded seriously, indeed, there are exceptions to everything, but your martial soul is blue silvergrass, so you obviously aren't the exception. In the past 100 years, although only 2 twin martial souls have appeared in the Tian-Do Empire and the Star Luo Empire, there have been 19 born with innate full soul power. I've carefully studied the martial souls of each of them, and not one of them was not a powerful existence. The youngest of them has already reached the level of a great soul master. Except for 14 who inherited powerful martial souls through family bloodlines, there are 5 exceptions. Their backgrounds are not noble, but they also possess innate full soul power. And this kind of unexpected occurrence is the existence of variant martial souls. Based on my many years of research on variant martial souls, there is no martial soul that would mutate from a blue silvergrass martial soul. And since your blue silvergrass martial soul is just an ordinary one, I can completely affirm that my judgment is correct. What is a variant martial soul? Tang San asked. The master patiently explained, to understand this, we first need to talk about how martial souls are inherited. A person's martial soul is directly related to the martial souls of their parents. The most normal situation is inheriting either the martial soul of the father or the mother. This is called familial martial soul inheritance. Some exceptions to this are what we call variant martial souls. They originate from the martial souls of the parents, but because there is a certain variability between the martial souls of the father and mother, the martial soul of the inheritor will exhibit a variation, producing a new martial soul. Variant martial souls can vary in strength, and some can even have innate full soul power. However, the vast majority of variant martial souls end up being weak. Variant martial souls are like the products of incest, with a high chance of being idiots, but it's also possible for them to produce geniuses far beyond ordinary people. Tang San nodded. Suddenly, he took a step back, creating distance between himself and the master. Then, he knelt down on both knees and bowed respectfully 3 times to the master. This time, it was the master who was stunned. What are you doing? Master, Tang San respectfully said, please accept me as your disciple. The master laughed, very satisfied. He bent over and helped Tang San up. A silly kid. Why are you bowing when you're seeking a master? Don't you know that's only done to kings and parents? Just a bow is enough. The customs in the Doluo continent apparently differed from Tang San's previous life, but Tang San didn't feel he was overly formal. He said solemnly, one day as a teacher, a lifetime as a father. You should accept my bow. Tang's sect was very strict in teaching etiquette, and he had been deeply influenced by that kind of education since childhood. The master looked at Tang San, touched. One day as a teacher, a lifetime as a father. All right, it seems I made the right choice after all. Seeing the micro-expressions, details determine success or failure. Although the master and disciple had not been in contact for long, the master had already gained some understanding of the child before him. Let's go. I'll take you to the administrative office to register. The master once again took Tang San's hand. His originally dry hand was slightly sweaty due to excitement. The Novice Soul Master Academy didn't look that big from the outside, mainly divided into several areas: the main teaching building, the playground, and the dormitory building on the east side of the playground. Although it was just a Novice Soul Master Academy, the requirements for students were very strict. Even if they lived nearby, students had to stay in the academy and undergo unified management. The administrative office was on the first floor of the main teaching building, where a teacher who looked to be in his 60s was specifically in charge of receiving new students, accompanied by 2 young teachers under 30. The master put the proof on the table and said to the elder teacher, Director Su, this is the work-study student sent by Xinghun Village this year. Please help him with the registration. Director Su smiled and said, Master, what brings you here? Rare guest. Please sit for a while. The master shook his head and said to Tang San, You register here yourself. These teachers will tell you what to do. I'll leave first. I'll find you later. Tang San nodded respectfully. Goodbye, master. The master smiled, patted his head, and turned to leave. Hearing Tang San's address to the master, Director Su seemed very interested. A young man, you call the master teacher? But he's not a teacher at our academy. But he is my teacher, Tang San replied. Director Su was taken aback. You've accepted the master as your teacher? His expression was somewhat odd, a mix of wanting to laugh but restraining it. What's wrong with that? Teacher, Tang San asked seriously. Director Su shook his head repeatedly and said, Nothing, nothing. I didn't expect the master to take disciples. However, you are still a student of our academy, so you must abide by the rules and regulations of the academy in the future. Do you understand? Tang San nodded. The 2 young teachers next to Director Su weren't as composed as him. One of them took the proof from the Martial Soul Hall and read it, then said with a smile, So you're Tang San. As a teacher of the academy, I have to remind you. A master isn't someone you just casually accept. Any soul master, whether graduated from the academy or not, can only acknowledge one master, otherwise, they will be looked down upon by the world. Do you really think the master is suitable for you? Oh, you also have innate full soul power. It's a pity your martial soul is blue silvergrass. Seeing the words innate full soul power on the proof, the teachers present showed surprise on their faces, but the mention of blue silvergrass turned their surprise into regret. Tang San looked somewhat puzzled at the 3 academy teachers in front of him. What's wrong? Director Su gave the young teacher beside him a stern look and said, Although the master's personality is a bit eccentric, from a certain perspective, he's invincible in martial souls. Anyway, since your martial soul is also blue silvergrass, it doesn't matter if you accept him as your master. Alright, that's it. This is your stuff, distributed by the academy for free. You'll be staying in room 7 of the dormitory building. The teacher in charge there will arrange your work as a work-study student. Off you go. Thank you. Tang San accepted the items handed over by Director Su, bowed, and then turned to walk out of the administrative office. Director Su gave him a standard Novice Soul Master Academy uniform, which looked very clean in white. Just as Tang San walked out of the administrative office, he faintly heard the voice of the young teacher speaking from inside. The master is indeed invincible, but only theoretically. Of course, his theories need to become reality for that to be true. Director, I still remember the master talking about the 10 core competencies of martial souls. It's simply ridiculous. Enough, the master is a friend of the dean. Don't make presumptuous judgments. Although no one has proven his theories to be correct, no one has proven them wrong either. In the world of martial souls, the master is a renowned figure. And no, Director, he should be renowned as a laughingstock. Everyone just treats him as a joke. Listening to the conversation inside, Tang San's steps only paused slightly before he continued walking outward. A faint trace of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth, not directed at his newly accepted master, but at the 3 teachers in the administrative office. Could it be that just from a simple certificate showing he had a twin martial soul and concluding that his other martial soul was very powerful, they would consider him a joke? Theory invincible? What he needed most now was theory. A master's power cannot be imparted to the disciple. What's imparted is knowledge. These people couldn't even get that straight, and they're supposed to be teachers at the academy. There was only one dormitory building, easy to find. Both students and teachers of the academy lived here. Just as old Jack said, the number of people who could become soul masters was very limited, especially in remote cities like Nuading. The number of students and teachers in the entire academy wasn't large, so one dormitory building was enough to accommodate everyone. The student dormitory had only 7 rooms. Since the students of the Novice Soul Master Academy were relatively young, for better management, students of each grade lived together in a large dormitory. There were about 40 students in each grade at the Novice Soul Master Academy. The bottom 3 floors of the dormitory building housed the 7 large dormitories for students, each with a teacher in charge. Dormitory 7 was a somewhat special existence among these 7 student dormitories, with the worst conditions. It was specifically for work-study students. After all, the academy wasn't a charity. Although work-study students had reduced tuition fees, their treatment couldn't be as good as regular students. Dormitory 7 was also the only dormitory where students of different ages lived together. Regardless of their grades, all work-study students lived here. As Tang San walked to the door of Dormitory 7, he heard noise coming from inside. The door was open, and he looked inside. It was a spacious room, nearly 300 square meters, with 50 beds in total, but only 11 had bedding. At this moment, there were 7 or 8 children between the ages of 8 and 12 making noise inside. Tang San knocked on the door, and the children's attention turned to him. One older child walked towards him. This child was nearly 2 heads taller than Tang San, and he was quite sturdy for his age. He looked down at Tang San and said, "Je new work-study student?" Tang San smiled kindly. Hello, I'm a work-study student from Shenghun Village." I'm Wang Sheng, martial soul is Battle Tiger, future soul master. I'm also the boss here. Kid, what's your name? What's your martial soul? I'm Tang San, and my martial soul is Blue Silvergrass. Blue Silvergrass? Since when can blue silvergrass be cultivated as a martial soul? Wang Xing looked extremely surprised, and most of the children in the dormitory burst into laughter, looking at Tang San as if he were a fool. Tang San still smiled. Could you make some room, please? Wang Sheng ignored Tang San's words. Kid, I'm the boss here. You have to listen to me from now on, got it? The smile gradually disappeared from Tang San's face. My name is Tang San, not Kid. If elders affectionately called him Little San, he wouldn't mind, or even if it was a kind nickname. But clearly, this so-called boss was trying to assert his dominance. Wang Sheng pushed Tang San's shoulder, making him step back a few steps. I'll call you Little San, what's wrong? Don't agree. Tang San smiled, shook his head lightly, and placed the school uniform in his hand on a nearby bed. Just as Wang Sheng was wondering what he was doing, suddenly, he found that Tang San in front of him had disappeared. The other students clearly saw Tang San take a fast step forward, already behind Wang Sheng. Without turning back, Tang San bent his right arm and struck Wang Sheng's waist with his elbow, while his right foot stayed in front of Wang Sheng's right foot. Wang Sheng hadn't even reacted yet when his whole body was sent flying out, stumbling and falling out of the dormitory door. Fortunately, his lower body strength was good, so he didn't fall down, otherwise, it would have been an embarrassing situation. You little brat, how dare you hit me? Wang Sheng was furious, turned around like a descending tiger, and pounced on Tang San. Tang San just hoped not to encounter too many troubles in his future school life, at least not to be disturbed in his normal life. Therefore, he was sure that he should give the so-called boss in front of him a lesson. This was called killing a chicken to warn the monkeys. Seeing Wang Sheng pounce, aiming a punch at his chest, Tang San didn't retreat but advanced. He took a step forward to meet Wang Sheng. His step fell in front of Wang Sheng, and at the same time, he pulled with his left hand and swung with his right. He completed a simple yet effective move. Wang Sheng felt as if the right fist he had thrown out was being guided by some special force, changing its direction. At the same time, a great force came from Tang San's right hand, and his foot was tripped up. His body flew out again. This time, it was much harder to maintain balance. Tang San's simple movements already utilized the Tang sect's martial skill, controlling crane capturing dragon. With the help of Wang Sheng's own strength and his own force, Wang Sheng fell flat on A. If the first time could be considered a coincidence, then tossing Wang Sheng out consecutively obviously wasn't so simple. The expressions of the other children watching Tang San suddenly changed. A low growl, obviously not something that should come from a child, echoed from Wang Sheng's throat. Faint yellow light emitted from his body, and the body that had fallen on the bed instantly bounced up. Both the speed and power were obviously beyond comparison with before. Martial soul. He was using the power of his martial soul. This thought flashed through Tang San's mind in an instant. But what did the martial soul matter? As he watched Wang Sheng's hands reaching for his shoulders, Tang San raised his own hands in a claw shape, meeting Wang Sheng's hands. Both his feet turned inward, knees slightly bent, forming a standard horse stance. Their four hands met. If the previous encounter was about technique, then what they were facing now turned into a direct contest of strength. Two pairs of hands, one large and one small, were already grabbing each other. Wang Sheng was obviously provoked by Tang San, a hint of ferocity appearing on his face. By now, he had used the power of his martial soul, Battle Tiger. Although he knew he couldn't really hurt Tang San, at least he wanted to use his strength to put this kid who embarrassed him on the ground. The tiger claw exerted force, and Wang Sheng was fully confident that with his top 5 strength among the students, it should be easy to overwhelm this kid in front of him. But was it really like that? Although Tang San was thin, how could his strength be ordinary when he could swing the forging hammer nearly 1,000 times a day? At the moment Wang Sheng exerted his force, he clearly felt that the hands, obviously smaller than his own, were as hard as steel. Almost in an instant, he gained overwhelming superiority in strength. Tang San's thumbs exerted force simultaneously. Wang Sheng felt his hand go numb, and his soul power was completely suppressed by the opponent. Then Tang San pulled his hands back, taking Wang Sheng with him. Wang Sheng had just pounced from the air, and Tang San's leap immediately threw him off balance. He saw Tang San's knee enlarge in front of him, and his heart screamed in horror. Tang San's knee was heading straight for his nose. Even if Tang San's own strength wasn't considered, just the weight of his body landing like this would probably break his nasal bone. At this moment, he couldn't help but regret it a little. But just as he was about to severely injure his opponent, Tang San's hands suddenly loosened. Since he had the upper hand in strength, he naturally could retreat if he wanted to. At the same time, his bent right knee suddenly opened up, turning into a kick on Wang Sheng's chest. It was a roundhouse kick, with a short range but a burst of force. Even if Tang San converted more of the force into a push, it was still the same. The students in the dormitory watched as Wang Sheng performed a high-difficulty backflip in the air uncontrollably, and with a thud, he fell flat on the ground. Although the Tang sect was famous for its hidden weapons, its grappling techniques were also extremely powerful. It was just that they were overshadowed by the brilliance of hidden weapons. Controlling crane capturing dragon was not only a method of force, but also a very domineering grappling technique, with its techniques of splitting tendons and bones. Of course, Tang San wouldn't use it in this situation. This time, Wang Sheng fell heavily, struggling for a while before crawling up from the ground. His eyes towards Tang San were now full of shock and anger. Regardless, he was just a 12-year-old kid. Faced with someone stronger than himself, fear was more than impulse. Tang San picked up his school uniform. Can you move aside now? Seeing Tang San walking towards him, Wang Sheng instinctively stepped aside. Tang San found a bed not far from the door and placed his school uniform on it. Why did you go easy on me just now? Wang Sheng, who had studied at the Novice Soul Master Academy for 5 years, couldn't understand why Tang San changed his knee strike to a kick to avoid causing serious injury. Tang San said indifferently, We're classmates, not enemies. A complex light flashed in Wang Sheng's eyes. I'm sorry just now. Every work-study student here has to face this. We work-study students are always looked down upon by other students, so we must stick together. I just hope that you, as a newcomer, can unite with us. Tang San smiled. So you want to give me a lesson? Wang Xing blushed, showing a hint of simple smile. It's you who gave me a lesson. But you're really amazing. You should be just 6 years old. Tang San nodded.